Here is my Panasonic DMR-EX80S hard disk drive and DVD recorder, which I like to use for digitizing VHS cassettes, but unfortunately it has now developed a problem. If I turn this on and we take a look at the display, and Panasonic vacuum fluorescent displays are real junk. This one is actually in relatively good condition. It boots up, but after a couple of seconds the display changes and shows U81. Now I looked up what U81 means, so I already have a pretty good idea of what fault I have to look for. Here is the inside of the unit. It's quite cramped and not very service-friendly. And the faulty components that I'm looking for are located under this board right here. I've unplugged all the ribbon cables from this, looks like a processor board with this big heatsink on there. Unfortunately, this card reader doesn't want to come out. I guess you have to disassemble the faceplate to remove it. So I hope I can just kind of pull this up and get the board out without removing this one first. Next obstacle is this bracket, which actually extends under this board all the way to over here. And right there it's held in place with a screw that is much longer than all the other screws, so that needs to go back into that spot. I loosened the screws of this board right here, so I can hopefully sort of, okay, that's that bracket pulled out. Okay, I've decided that removing this board would be easier, so take out the screws of that, and don't forget this screw in the back panel. And I finally managed to pull out that board, and there is actually a connector under the board right there, so I don't know how the hell I'm going to get that back together. And guess what? The components that I'm looking for, the faulty components, are not there. Nice. Well, not the end of the world, because I found the problem right there. Bad capacitor. Here is a close-up of that bad capacitor, 680 microfarads at 6.3 volts. And yeah, this is bad. It's bulging. Has crap coming out of it. That is toast. Now, when I did my research on the U81 era, I found a YouTube video, and in it there were two bad capacitors right here in this area. Now, one of those two bad capacitors was a 680 microfarad at 6.3 volts capacitor. Now, the unit in that video didn't have this daughter board, so it might be the same part of the circuit that Panasonic has just put into a different place in this unit. Now, in that video there was also a bad 100 microfarad capacitor, so I will have to keep my eyes open and make sure there is not a second bad capacitor in this unit. For right now, I'm going to replace this capacitor, and of course I was not able to find another 680 microfarad capacitor. So here is the replacement that I'm going to use, and this is a 1000 microfarad at 25 volt capacitor. Not an exact replacement, but it should be close enough. And as you can see, the capacitance actually reads a little low, so that's good in this case. Now the other problem is, this is a one of these highly integrated double-sided boards, and it's really difficult to solder in this, and I was not able to unsolder the bad capacitor. So what I've done is I just clipped it off and left the leads in place. So I'm going to use those to install the replacement capacitor. There is the new capacitor in place. And it doesn't look pretty, but it should work. And it should fit. Of course, this thing is like twice as big as the original capacitor. And I forgot to mention, when you are replacing a bad capacitor, make sure it has not leaked any electrolyte on the board. If it has, the electrolyte on the board is corrosive and will cause further damage over time. So you have to clean it off using, for example, isopropyl alcohol. In this case, no electrolyte has leaked on the board, so that's all fine. I got this board reinstalled and reconnected, and yes, the long screw is right there, but a short one would not get any grip in that hole, so you can't get them mixed up. And this daughter board is back in place, and despite the much bigger capacitor somewhere down in there behind the ribbon cable, it does still fit. And now it's time for the test. I got the recorder connected to this TV that I recently found at the dump. Fully functional, remote control included. You gotta love it. Anyway, I have the recorder unplugged because I think if I plug it in, it's going to attempt to boot straight away. So let's plug it in and see what happens. And it says, please wait. Oh, and the hard disk drive actually does successfully spin up. Sounds a lot better than it did before. But the TV is showing a blue screen again. Let's try to get them both in frame. Okay. No U81 so far. Instead we have a clock, so let's power this up and see once again what's going to happen. Okay. Did something with the DVD. Oh, and there we have setup right there. So, I'd say that is a successful repair. Yeah. What a tiny little capacitor like this can do. Here is some footage I've recorded of a VHS cassette onto the hard drive of this recorder. Don't ask me who that is, don't ask me where that is. So, the recorder does work again. Thank you for watching.